World War II saw a brief but brilliant golden age for the heavy tank. Only a handful of nations ever managed to build them in any real numbers: France, Britain, Germany, and the Soviet Union. For the French and the British, these beasts were essentially infantry battering rams, designed to smash through fortified lines. The Germans, meanwhile, turned to heavy armor mid-war out of sheer necessity. They needed something tough enough to counter enemy tanks head-on. The Soviets borrowed a page from the British playbook, but with a crucial twist. Their heavies were meant to fight alongside mechanized units, so they had to balance thick armor with genuine mobility. The KV tank was an early embodiment of that doctrine. While its combat performance was quite solid, it had plenty of issues under the hood. A clunky, unreliable gearbox, an overworked suspension, and that's just the top of the list. A temporary stopgap solution came in the form of the high-speed KV-1S. Yet the concept was only truly perfected with the arrival of the Object 237, better known as the IS-1. Its new planetary transmission proved far more reliable and user-friendly. Engineers also managed to improve the armor arrangement through increased thickness and superior sloping. Thanks to advances in Soviet casting technology, designers were able to move away from flat, unsloped plates to highly angled, sloped armor. In the end, the tank weighed less than the KV, and its V2 engine was successfully adapted for use on heavy vehicles. By almost every metric, the IS-1 outperformed its predecessor, except in one crucial area: its gun. The KV-2 was fitted with the massive M10T howitzer, perfect for flattening bunkers. The standard KV-1s, meanwhile, carried various 76mm guns that, by late 1942, were already starting to look underpowered. What the Army really needed was something right in the middle of those two options. The first candidate was the 85mm D5T cannon. It offered sufficient firepower against contemporary German tanks, had good ballistic characteristics, and fit the turret well. However, the same caliber was simultaneously being tested on the T-34. A heavy tank could not be distinguished from a medium solely by its armor. It also required a cannon that could clearly outgun its lighter stablemates. There were two contenders, the 100mm S-34 and the 122mm A-19. The S-34 had unresolved design flaws and, more importantly, no armor-piercing rounds in mass production. The 122mm gun, by contrast, had ample ammunition available and a well-proven design. The winner was clear. The IS-2, armed with the 122mm D25T, went into full production. For a heavy tank, the IS-2 was remarkably versatile. At 46 tons, it could be readily transported by rail. Its armor offered solid protection, and its powerful rounds could penetrate even the most heavily armored German vehicles, including the Ferdinand and the Panther. The IS-2 was also surprisingly quick and, crucially, reliable. It wasn't perfect. For instance, loading its huge shells was a slow, grueling affair. But the sheer firepower, protection, and mobility of the tank more than made up for it. Later production series introduced further improvements, such as replacing the vulnerable stepped front, inherited from the KV, with a single sloped armor plate. The IS-2's design proved so successful that the tank remained in active service even after the end of World War II, and was kept in reserve stocks well into the Cold War. Among heavy tanks, it was one of the most produced, versatile, and effective combat vehicles of its time. Not a lumbering bunker like the King Tiger, but a proper, multi-purpose workhorse. Over in War Thunder, Rank 4 is home to a whole family of IS-2s, 4 in the Soviet tech tree, and 3 export variants in the Chinese tree. The differences between them are largely minor, like add-on track armor on the lower glacis of the IS-2 number 321, or different markings. The only meaningful distinction is between early and late production models. The early group includes the standard Soviet IS-2, the Chinese 1943 model, and the IS-2 number 402. Everything else is late model. The Soviet Heavy is equipped with one of the most powerful tank guns that you can find at rank 4. Its BR-471 APHE rounds can penetrate the turret fronts of King Tigers, Ferdinands, American heavy tanks, and other well-armored opponents. The explosive filler is substantial enough that you almost never need to shoot twice. The trade-off, however, is that this gun takes ages to reload, more than 20 seconds. That's enough for most enemies to fire 2 or even 3 times. As such, close quarters combat is extremely risky for the IS-2. A more reliable approach is to use this heavy tank as fire support at medium to long range, especially given its armor layout. The lower glacis, the turret, and even the early variant's frontal armor are frankly not that impressive in terms of keeping you on the field. If you do end up in a close-range fight, it might be a good idea to turn on the spot and reverse towards the enemy. Thankfully, the IS-2's is fast enough in reverse to actually pull it off. Of course, this way you might lose the ability to move, but you stand a much better chance of actually surviving the hit. On the late models, the upper glacis is tough enough to bounce even big caliber rounds, as long as you're not too close to the enemy. So the rule stands: keep your distance, hide your weak spots, and let the cannon do the talking. The IS-2 is a reliable and versatile combat vehicle. In real life, it played a significant role in the final phase of World War II and earned its spot as one of the most effective Soviet tanks of the era. How do you like to play this legend? Share your favorite tactics in the comments down below.